welcome to this video from zonalaudio.com. Today we have a one-to-one tuition session with producer Callum Plant. Callum is someone that I've known for a long time, having DJ'd together on the Manchester Techno scene. Callum is an excellent producer in his own right, with releases on Gynoid Audio, Liberta Records and Analytic Trail. However, in his own words, has fallen into some bad habits over the years and wanted to tighten up his production process, both in terms of improving his overall sound and increasing consistency across his mixdowns. This session is a culmination of several other one-to-one sessions where we set up a template in Logic Pro, starting with certain faders that were going to be assigned for certain sounds and setting those faders at an approximate good level, and also set up a nice drum bus processing chain with references such as A-Paul, Mark Broom and Vinicius Honorio. Although I don't really like reducing mixing down to a formula or a template, there is always common themes across mixing, and depending what style that you're going for, you can absolutely improve your sound and consistency of mixes depending what style you're going for by setting some things up in advance, both to help that consistency of sound and also save time and brain power when actually producing, therefore having less things get in your way and less things interfering with your creativity. At points we get into the real nitty-gritty of mixing and EQing and compressing. Some parts of this video are actually a little bit nerdy, but really help hammer home some of the concepts that I've been trying to convey over the channel over the past couple of years. And we really get deep into how, when and why to use EQ, multiband compression, normal compression, saturation and limiting. We also look at separation of parts using EQ and dynamic EQ. And finally, we look at best practices for preparing your pre-master file when ready to take it out to the real world, what to do on your master channel to get it sounding nice, loud and punchy. As with a lot of these excerpt videos, Callum asks some great questions which ensues into some extra information which I think will be really helpful for lots of producers out there, both new and experienced. I really do hope this video is useful, informative or entertaining in some way. If it is, please give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.
Like two different simple projects, and then I'll show you. Oh, so it already has them. Okay, right. It was just like going through each thing, right? Quite simplifying it, and then going through each stage. Like we did, but like so I know where I'm going a bit wrong with the mixing stage. So I've like labelled them a bit, but
yeah.
So
let's just get ahead of this one. Kit, revising that to -12.
minus 12, yeah?
Yeah, so again, all of these should be approximate.
Yeah.
So go with your feeling and your ears. Kick at -12, but your kind of kick bass group -10.
Yeah, so that would be my drum bus then?
Yeah, so your drum bus -10, yeah.
Okay.
And the same thing with the synths. So with synths, sometimes you might just have one main synth, and that should be at -14.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might have maybe 5 different synths going on.
Yeah.
At points, they might be happening at the same time.
Yeah.
You want the sum of that to be -14.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's like, if you've got one big synth, -14. If you've got several, you need to try and fit them in so that they're not going over -14.
Right, okay, yeah. Get that. That good proof? Yeah?
Yeah, sounding perfect.
Okay. So it was just I'll bypass these, so it's just playing without the. That's the kick there, minus.
So that looks like -11 to me, which probably is okay, but you might want to go a little bit up or a little bit.
Okay, so you can just bring it up a little bit to about there.
That's probably too much, yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. So bring it down to -12 then.
Keep it in -12 for now, yeah.
Yeah, that's -12.
That's going to be a safe area for your kick.
Okay.
Just a caveat to all this,
Yeah.
it depends on the actual level of your audio as well, or your MIDI. So it'll be really useful to do what you're doing, but just bear in mind it's probably going to need some adjustment based on the source material.
Right. Okay. You're saying depending on how it's been recorded.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but like for the most part, like what you're using is probably going to be from the same kind of area in terms of your samples. I don't know
Yeah.
where your samples are from, but,
Right.
but more often than not, samples are like normalized at zero.
Mm.
So in theory, everything that you're doing here will just work straight off the bat. But
Yeah.
just bear in mind, some of it might need adjustment
Okay. Right.
depending on
No
the
worries.
source. So yeah, a good example of that is like if you recorded something in yourself from a synth, it wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily be at zero.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a consideration to make.
And then finding that balance then if you have done that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Right.
adjusting it based on the source audio. But like
Right.
is now, this will work perfectly.
Right. So then I'd probably go for the rumble. Is acting like I'll just put what's it called in here just to show you where it's sort of. So that's sort of in the subs, isn't it? Really, that.
Yeah.
So it's acting like a bass line, would you say?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't need any more because I'm trying to think. So the other day you said when I was doing the acid track, the rumble was sort of in the low mids.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. It was kind of a bass line, but so how would you sort of figure out that you could put something in the subs? Maybe is that when you did that trick with the kick and you added like a little bell there and like you did that
Yeah.
sort of thing. It's knowing whether not to do that or not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So that I wouldn't have any of that kind of stuff set up as a template. That
Yeah.
needs to be based
Just
on my feeling at the time, but maybe even more likely once I've checked it against a reference or like in the
right.
whatever.
Okay. Yeah. No worries.
But in terms of building the template for this, I would say it's definitely going to be beneficial and time saving and good for your workflow just to have a blank Pro Q3 pretty much every channel.
Yeah.
Just saves you loading it each time then.
Yeah. That's cool. So put a Pro Q3 on nearly all of them.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
like I'd say no settings, but you could always like put in a few nodes, but
Yeah.
no boost, no cut, but it's just there
Yeah.
ready to go just to save you a bit of time.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, because I think obviously you've probably seen I was overcomplicating things last time when we simplified it down.
Yeah.
I was, yeah, it was just simple.
In the corner, you've got the button that says presets,
Top which corner?
top left.
Okay.
So yeah, you can just choose any of those.
Yeah.
So
What would you for mid? Is it which
So-
one would you say?
if you select stereo mastering, just for the sake of seeing how the display changes, so just double click that one.
Activate. Sorry.
Yeah, so that should be it. So just close that out now.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so yeah, as far as I'm aware, the way this preset is,
Oh, this is what I meant. It's doing it right now on this. Is it? It shows that even though it's stereo channel, it's showing that it's in the middle.
so that's what you want. So it's on a stereo channel, but it's playing a mono signal.
Yeah. So there's no problem with you don't have to make that channel mono, even though it's no. Right, that's cool. So that saves me a bit of time. That because majority of the kick samples I've got are actually down the middle anyway. So it's a lot of wasting time, isn't it? Okay. So yeah, when you mentioned about Vox, so basically using this is like figuring out if there's too much where it's kicking there. It's not really hitting till the 30, is it? Is that right?
Say that again.
Around about the 30 hertz, is it?
So if you hover your mouse,
Yeah.
and if you take a look at the top left section of the black box, it gives you the hertz frequency.
Top left black box.
Yeah, it's 49.
Whereabouts is that?
So just drop your mouse down a tiny bit. You see there? It's when the numbers come up.
Okay, right. So wherever you move.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Oh, right. So
that's really useful for quite a lot of things. And
Yeah.
it gives you the key as well. So if you want to check
Yeah.
what key your kick is in, that's a really easy way to do it by using spam.
Oh, right. Okay. Because that would be a good point as well to sort of check, key with Rumble, or is there a way of doing that?
Yeah, I mean, rumbles are often pretty much atonal. Like
Right. Okay. Yeah.
it's just a deep noise as opposed to a pitched, like a bass line will have a pitch. Rumble
Yeah.
kind of intentionally, a lot of the time, atonal. However, it's still worth checking.
Yeah.
You might look at your rumble and go, oh, there is a bit of a peak there, and that is giving almost a tone which isn't in tune with my kick or is in tune with my kick. So
Yeah.
yeah, you could be in a situation where you're like, why isn't this kick and rumble quite sounding right?
Yeah.
Look at the rumble and you go, oh, it's it's got a peak here, and then you can just EQ that peak out to make it more atonal.
Right, okay, that's cool. It's
Very,
what?
very useful tool.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not the most boring plugin ever, but one of the most useful.
Yeah. It's good. So yeah, we'll go back to so that's fine, isn't it? Now where it is.
Yeah.
Are you happy with that? And then we'll go to the rumble now. So rumble, you'd say minus 14 or 15, maybe?
So I'm a bit more like easy with this.
Yeah.
Like because it has to relate to your kick.
Okay.
So do yeah, say minus 11. So a little
11? Okay.
bit under your kick.
So the kick's at 12, but minus 12, and that's at minus 11.
Yeah.
So it's actually more than that.
How do you mean?
Like the kicks are usually the stronger one, isn't it? Not.
No. So 11 is a lower value. So a low. Oh, sorry. No,
Yeah, it should be like minus 14, should it, or something?
I meant minus 13. Sorry.
30. So just a little bit less. Because the kick's kicking at minus 12. And then yeah?
Yeah.
You think that's about right?
Yeah. But again, looking at the actual audio, it looks like the actual audio of the kick is louder than the audio of the rumble. So just play the rumble back and check your value on it. So yeah, so you see on the channel that's actually lower. So you bring that up until about minus 13.
Okay.
But then you need to make a decision. You need to listen to them both and go, does that sound right?
Yeah.
Might want to adjust a little bit either way.
See, I'd say the rumble's a bit too loud for me personally, but
so that again, this is largely about personal choice, about the vibe and the feeling of your track.
yeah.
But, that's a good area to get it in. So maybe for you, let's put up the rumble at minus 14 to start with, and then
Yeah.
you can adjust.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. But we could also do some things to sort of get it out the way even more, maybe, like of the kick.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll go back to that. So that's
yeah, also bear in mind that I would say pretty much all the time, any EQ that you do is going to affect the gain of the signal. So always either be adjusting the output or input of adjusting the output of your EQ up or down, or adjust it on the channel itself.
okay. The EQ, sorry.
Yeah, so just as an example, say with the kick or as you're on the rumble, say if you decided to boost a frequency, say 30 hertz of the rumble,
Yeah.
it's going to increase the overall gain of the sound.
Yeah.
EQ has a output on it on the bottom right hand corner. So if you boost, let's do it as an experiment because it'll be useful. So just on the rumble now, that node that you've put in, just do a 6 dB boost. So turn that up by 6 dB. So this is an extreme example just for something like that. So now play back. Notice on the channel now that's gone up to minus 12.
Yeah. So you want to turn it down here to.
So then you'd compensate that on the output.
Right. Okay. So if you adjust anything here or here, and then it's sounding a bit louder, change that down there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't have to be like scientifically exact with that.
Just by ear, basically, a bit as well.
Yeah, and the same goes if you're making significant cuts, then you can actually boost the output on your EQ.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So those two sound good to me. How are they sounding to you?
Yeah. Smooth. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So then, should I play the clap at the same time with it, or?
Yeah.
So. That's showing minus 18, I think. So I could bring that up, couldn't I? What would you say generally for claps?
14-ish.
14, right, okay.
Just out of interest, these samples that you're having now,
Yeah.
is that stuff that you've exported from a project?
Yeah.
So yeah, so just as a side note, these samples won't have been normalized.
Yeah,
Normalized means that it has been exported so that the loudest point is 0 dB. So
okay.
if you're using a commercially released sample pack, everything's
Yeah,
zero,
normalized. Yeah,
and therefore things are going to be louder. In this scenario of your template,
yeah,
you might want to turn your channels down based on that. I'm
right.
explaining that perfectly.
I sort of get it, yeah, because obviously the way I was working before, it was maybe higher in the project because I wanted to bring it back out and start again. So it probably is a bit, yeah, you figured it out like what it is, but
Yeah.
um,
Bring that
what
up.
is, I was going to ask that question actually. So when I am wanting to, because usually I find the best way for me to work is getting everything to audio really, because I get stuck, I keep going over things if it's in MIDI, like going, oh, I could change this again, and then you get too many different ideas, and then I just need to set. So is this a good, is this all right doing it this way? Do you reckon?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, just
Okay.
it's just a consideration to make that if you were, say, you saved this template, you cleared all the audio in it, and then you went to start again, and you were just using samples directly from a sample pack, then it
It'd be
would,
totally different.
yeah, not so much it would be totally different, but everything would need to be turned down.
Yeah, so I know that for a fact. That's the whole part of mixing it. I'm gonna have to get all the levels right each time, but it would be a good way to sort of have something as a template, just to go off. Because like I could use this again, but like put different things in, and then sort of get an idea of where it should be, actually.
Like the main reason I'm mentioning it is because I don't want you to get this set up with your samples that you've prepared and then
Yeah.
using different samples that are all normalized. It's just not, it's just going to be too loud. Everything's going to be too loud, basically.
Oh, right. Okay. So if I threw in a normal, we'll try that in a bit then if you want, and then see what happens.
So in theory, every single sample that you dropped into this was
Yeah,
at 0 dB. Then on your channels here, you see at the bottom left where your mouse is now,
yeah,
the actual reading of that channel is 3.1. Okay.
yeah.
If it was zero, you put a normalized sample on, the readout would be zero. So then the value you need to set the fader at would be, if it's clap at -14, you would put the fader to -14.
Right,
That actually makes it a bit more simple in that way.
right.
Does that make sense? Just again, being aware of the level of your source audio,
Yeah, yeah.
how that relates to your channel volume.
Right, no worries. Right, so we'll go. Basically, with the clap, it's only hitting. Should I cut out quite a bit of the bottom end?
So yeah, in terms of, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily suggest doing any like pre-cuts. However, for anything that isn't your kick and bass, it's highly likely that you're going to want to remove everything below kind of 80 to 100 hertz.
Yeah,
So what I'd actually do is put on a low cut
yeah,
and then set it to like 50. So, and this, I have something similar in my kind of like default Ableton set. But what you don't want to do is set it to somewhere that's going to be anywhere near close to too high. You still want to make that decision of where the cut should be every single time that you make a track.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I've noticed if I cut out too much of a clap, it loses its sort of feeling.
Exactly.
Even though I know it gets in the way of stuff. So
Yeah.
for me, see there it's too much, too much.
Okay.
I'd probably say maybe there,
Yeah.
personally, but
So yeah, but for me, what I would do is actually leave that a little bit lower.
okay, yeah, that's fine. What
Yeah.
would you say about?
Yeah. But
Just gonna write these down because sometimes it's interesting.
sure. So yeah, I'd do that so that I'm forcing myself to make the decision instead of just leaving it down to something that I've already done previously that could potentially harm the sound.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, what we're aiming to do here is more than anything save time.
Yeah, yeah,
Nothing else. Like obviously you're saving a lot of brain power about having to think about all that stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Last thing you want to do is do anything that is going to harm the sound before you even start writing.
Right, yeah, yeah. Okay, so hats. That's a double hat, really. Would you say double hats? Um, About -16, was it?
Possibly as high as -12. Just try
Okay.
that. Try that at -12.
Okay.
So again, we're getting into quite technical details in that one, it depends on the source audio, but a hi-hat is a very short sound with a fast transient. So you kind of want it to punch through the mix a little bit.
See there, that's it. That's at its full because it was already quite low.
So yeah, so that's it. Because the source audio is already really quiet, it's like
Yeah.
you're having to push the channel volume really hard.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of clip gain? Like, can you
So I've got these the plugins now, the ones that you mentioned. Where did I get them? These ones. It's
Oh, you got them all.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've only got the clipper, but
I
yeah,
think
some good ones on there.
I don't know which one you'd.
So don't worry about that. Let's not add any plugins at this stage.
Okay.
Well, not any creative style plugins anyway.
Yeah.
What I'm like, I know Pro Tools and Ableton have a thing called clip gain. So what you should be able to do instead of turning the volume up on the channel is just turn up the source audio.
Right.
Let me do a quick Google.
Yeah.
I might ask ChatGPT if this isn't the case, you can just use a gain plugin to boost it some more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Change the gain of regions in the track.
So maybe a way around me having less volume on my, like the ones where I've got another project template. What if I recorded them louder? Would that be better?
Yeah, yeah,
So, because there's an option to normalize your audio, isn't there? Would that not be a good idea now?
yeah, yeah.
Right, okay, yeah.
So let me, yeah, region. I'm going to send you some on WhatsApp. Do you have WhatsApp
Okay.
on your computer?
I've got it on my phone here, so
It'll just be easier to read on your computer, but that should make sense. So select the audio in the arrangement. On the left-hand side, open the inspector panel. That's what we need. And then under region, you'll see a gain field.
spectacle.
Just close that down. In the bottom panel now, there's edit functions and view.
Okay.
I'd imagine it will be under one of those.
So you just put that on.
Yeah.
It should do it, shouldn't it? But yeah, that'll be better then.
Okay, so let's just go over what we've done again. And yeah, let's basically work to that assumption that every piece of source audio is going to be at 0 dB. And yeah, just remember if you're going to do this process, just to select normalize before you bounce out your samples.
And then we've got that other function as well, just in case. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if you haven't got that, then
Yeah.
function and the gain. So let's just jump back a few steps and do the same with the kick and the rumble. Feel free to like go ahead and start normalizing stuff. I'm just going to grab some water. I'll be 30 seconds.
So do you think should normalize all these?
I would say so, and I would say that should be the way that you approach.
Work. Okay, yeah, that's fine.
At least in like, I'm still trying to kind of understand exactly the scenario in which you want to use this. And it seems like if you're wanting to essentially do new versions, so just on that, let's go to 0. So function, normalize, and then target level goes 0 instead of -1.
0, yeah. Okay.
And then, yeah, so this will be a much quicker way now of actually bringing it
Yeah,
up.
that's a well better idea. So that's the one we're up to. It's just good practice for me to get it like this, and then it's simplified as well, isn't it? So shakers, is that the same sort of as what's it called? As hi-hats maybe, or even less.
Yeah, probably a little bit lower.
14.
14, 15.
So it's just a synth now, and you said minus.
-14. Nice sounding loop, by the way.
Which one?
What you've got going on just sounds nice.
Oh yeah, it's not. It's actually sounding better that we've just put it into like normalized it a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. That so.
Yeah, things should, in theory, be clearer.
Yeah, definitely. Do need to get an audio sound card as well as some.
Yeah, you'll get more gain out of a sound card than you will from your headphone output on your laptop.
Yeah. We're doing that minus
14, yeah.
right. So I'm happy with that. Now it's time to sort of like put it into the drum bus, do you reckon?
Yeah.
So we've got what we'd usually do, but obviously Did you say to start off with Saturn? To maybe just start off with the saturation,
Yeah.
the soft tube one. So remember last time you said to me, I need to get it. It was this bit, wasn't it?
Yeah. So you make well, you want to make sure that the level going in, or I should say, the level going out is the same as what's going in. So for like your drums, -10 is what we want as the maximum for the drum bus.
-10.
Yeah, so it's but that so yeah, yeah. But that very much depends on the amount of signal that you're sending in. So if you're only sending in the kick and rumble, then
Yeah.
that isn't going to sum to as much as if you're sending in kick, rumble, clap, shakers, etc., etc.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, there's always going to be some trade-off and adjustment to be done based on what you're sending into it.
Right. Okay. Um. So
Yeah, the amount of saturation that you're applying is going to affect the gain. So I
yeah.
would say pretty much every time you do a project, you're going to have to adjust the input and output.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're looking at this point as well.
Yeah, more often than not, that's going to stay at zero, but you could get
Yeah.
a vibe if you increase the input and then did your saturation, but then you'd have to compensate that on the output.
Right. Okay. Sounds pretty cool high, doesn't it?
I think it harms the kick a little bit.
Yeah. Maybe lower then. Throw in any more bits into the drum bus at this point, or
I mean, personally, I like to put all of my drums into one bus.
yeah.
And then there will be maybe exceptions, like the
Yeah.
ride will get really affected by saturation.
Right.
So I'd maybe like keep the ride out, and then
Yeah.
if I've got one really sharp one sharp closed hi-hat
Yeah.
that I want to really pierce through,
Take it out.
saturation is going to smear the transient. So
Yeah.
maybe have all of my drums except one hi-hat and one ride, not in
Right.
one
Right
group.
in the mix. Yeah.
Like sometimes I do want a crunchy ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
I even have one ride inside the group and one ride outside the group.
Right.
So yeah,
Okay.
and you're getting into very personal and creative choices here.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Okay. So I usually do this on the like to glue it the low end. Would you say that's a good idea?
More often than not, yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything that I need to just adjust with that? What am I looking at with the MD usually?
No, again, you just need to like A/B and make sure that you're not adding too much gain or taking too much gain away. So if you turn MB off now and then play back and check the gain.
Check here.
So I think that's active at the moment. Yeah,
Sorry. Yeah.
that's off now. That's -12. Turn it on and then check. You've actually turned it down a tiny bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that this goes back to what I was saying before about if you boost a certain frequency, that is going to add to the overall gain.
Yeah.
So in this scenario, you might want
Turn
to,
it up.
yeah. So input or output. I don't know exactly how it works with the Fab Filter stuff, but
Let's try that first. Going up a little bit. But there. Yeah.
and again, just to reiterate, this will differ based on the source audio.
Right. So let me just write that Pro MB. I'd call that gluing the low end, isn't it? Yeah. Would we say input level there? That it seems to do the trick, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ask ChatGPT about that. Great question. ChatGPT always says I'm asking great questions. Just trying to flatter me. I'll screenshot you. Well, in fact, I'll paste all this. Oh, it's still going.
Yeah, I've been asking it some questions recently. It's quite good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really helpful. Input gain versus output gain on FabFilter Pro and B. Input gain adjusts the signal level before any multiband processing occurs. affects how hard the signal hits the band, potentially changing the compression behavior. So that's a really key point, potentially changing the compression behavior. Raising input gain causes bands to react more aggressively if the thresholds are unchanged. So this is actually stuff that I really did know, but having it written down like this,
Yeah, it can help. Yeah.
useful if your signal is too quiet or not triggering the compression. Think of it like this. It's adjusting what you feed into the machine, not just loudness, but how it behaves. That's a really good way to put it. Output gain, adjust the level after all the processing has occurred. Used for gain matching the process signal with the bypass drive. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's in your, I've sent you that on WhatsApp anyway, if you want to read in more detail.
But you think the inputs doing it that way was fine then?
Working for now, and
Yeah.
to kind of put that in even more of a contextual situation of what we're doing now, you might be able to get more of a glued sound if you increase the input level.
Right.
The output level is just going to change the volume.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So,
As
if you put, maybe if I turn this up a little bit more,
yeah,
but the overall volume still stays, or it does increase it. So,
if you're increasing it on the input, then compensate that with the output.
what did you say? Sorry, it doesn't.
If you were increasing, like in using a saturation tool, for example, if you increase the input, it's then going to drive the saturation harder. It's going to color the sound more, and it's going to excite the frequencies so that it gets louder. Therefore, you're going to want to compensate that on the output.
Right. Okay.
And again, we're talking about creative choices here, personal creative choices.
Right. Right. So, I think it's already hit it pretty hard with that. But
yeah, and the best way to check is just listen back, turn it on, turn it off.
See, that's a bit.
Yeah.
Probably say about halfway, maybe.
Yeah.
Sounds good about that. So
if you just
so now on to what's that?
If you just go back to Pro MB, let's just do like the visual representation on FabFilter stuff is really good. So just for demonstration purposes, go to the input knob, start turning it up, but keep your eye on what happens to that yellow line.
Yeah, it's getting more crushed, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's not got as much room to sort of move.
Yeah. I think for this use case, I think that's a good thing to do, is just bump the input level up a bit.
Yeah.
I think it was 1.7, something like that. Let's also, whilst we're here, just give a consideration to the release time. So if you click the node, we've got release there. So it's already set quite fast.
Yeah.
Again, just play around with the release and take a look at what happens to the yellow line as you do so.
See, that's quite cool.
Yeah.
So a really fast release.
On the FabFilter stuff, like definitely for the limiter, the release parameter that's called release, it isn't actually the release that you would like same that you'd see on a compressor. So you see how it's actually giving a percentage value, not a time value. Like
right.
On the Logic stock compressor, the release will be in milliseconds, like seconds. Yeah. So yeah, I might, in fact, no, I can't be asking ChatGPT about that. But all I want to say is that if you put the fastest release on a compressor, you're probably going to introduce distortion.
Right.
I don't think that's the case with Pro MB because it's just set up a little bit differently so that you don't run into such issues.
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
So yeah.
So maybe just when you come to this, is everything else set about right?
Yeah, the ratio could be higher potentially, but again, we're getting into creative choices. So you could
ratio. Where's that?
That's kind of, you've got 3 sliders along the bottom. It's the left.
Ah, right. Okay.
So yeah, often a higher ratio can be good for low end compression, but again, it's about
just playing around with it
and also looking to see what's happening. So if you just play back again quickly.
So turn the ratio up. Yeah, it doesn't do anything when it's like that.
What we really want to happen for this process or at
Yeah.
least I like, what I found that I like in terms of the sound, is it for it to duck below zero, but
Yeah.
it's a little bit above zero. And that's for me what gives that gluey sound. You've got when the bass isn't at its fullest, the device is kind of pushing it up a little bit, so it
Right.
gets it out and again gives that gluey sound.
Right.
Yeah, the final consideration to make here is your cutoff point. So the vertical line,
Yeah.
drag that left and right. So
Yeah.
you felt like that too much of the bass is being compressed, you could drag it to the left so that only maybe under 70 or 80 hertz is
Yeah.
acted upon.
So it's all so you mean like this?
But like where it was fine, I'd say. But again, depending on what's being fed into it, you might want to adjust these parameters slightly.
Okay, yeah. So that's a good point to say. Right, so we'll go to now to the Pro QC. So it's lost a bit of its
So just before we get into the settings on this,
yeah,
with Pro and B there, that was only
yeah,
with the low end, and we were
yeah.
into the kick and rumble. Have you put any other channels into the
Not yet, no.
so because the Pro and B was like only looking at low end, the compressor is full spectrum.
Yeah,
It's like a sidechain EQ within it, so that you can say like ignore the low end.
yeah,
So there's on you can see at the bottom sidechain little thing, so that brings up.
yeah,
So very often, especially for drum bush, you might want to, in fact, it's I kind of almost suggesting it there, the red node. You might want to,
Ah, okay.
yes, that Pro MB is already dealing with the low end. So I'd probably put that about 80. And
Yeah.
again, depends on what you've done before. But now that compressor isn't going to be too affected by the low end. So actually now when you play back, you'll notice that that gain reduction red line is behaving differently and probably not doing as much.
Ah, brilliant. Yeah. That's a good point, that. So I think on some of the ones I was getting carried away with using the Pro MB and this, and I was thinking it's maybe doing a bit too much.
Yeah. So that's one good way is just like to say that to compressor, ignore the bass. So now I don't know if you want to try putting in some more drums and see how the compressor.
Yeah, I'm happy with the compression on that. So let's go with so just try a load of them.
Yeah,
So try all of them.
yeah, might as well.
Yeah, so
Yeah, just to kind of go back to what you were saying about the Mark Broom thing, using the saturation knob, that's where we'd be heading to that style if we were putting all of our drums into the drum bus. We're going to get a more
yeah.
so open Pro C2 again, and you'll see that that line should be reacting differently again. Once it's yeah, once it's
Do you want to take control of the computer at any point, or
I think it's probably more useful to do it
are you
this.
doing it? Okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Just check your synth isn't also going in. So I was just thinking all drums at the moment.
So synths, yeah, I can take it out that
Let's keep the synth separate.
stereo.
So again, this is where I keep saying about you might want to adjust certain levels of things because now it's going into that saturation. It's enhancing the highs of all the
Yeah.
making them sound louder, even though they're not necessarily getting louder. So you might want to adjust a few bits based on that. But yeah, I'd say the settings you've got now on the Pro C2 is on the compressor is probably going to be a good starting point.
Yeah.
But again, like let's just kind of play around so you get a bit more familiar with the controls.
Yeah.
Playback, I think we were getting about. So try bringing the threshold down and see what happens to the sound. Okay, and then just do that again, but turn it on and off and listen to the difference.
Let me just take this synth off and then I can. It just brightens it up a little bit and brings it up.
Yeah, I was going to say I feel like it's got a bit more energy.
Yeah, yeah.
Might be a weird thing to say, but it sounds faster.
Yeah. It's like sort of
Yeah, so
bumping.
almost like you're extracting groove from the sound with the compressor.
So you'd say when you're doing the Pro MB on the glow end and then do this on the.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. Because yeah, I was thinking, with that acid track, maybe I should do that because I did it with the MB and then maybe, I don't know. We'll have a look into it, but I'll do that on my own time, I think. But right, so we're happy with that. We don't need to go into Saturn, do we?
No, what I'd do for this, as it's already in there in your chain, I'd put it before the saturation knob. Excuse me.
Which one?
Saturn. So just in terms of your signal flow, I'd leave it turned off. But yeah, I'd put it before that, and just so it's there as a creative option.
Okay.
I'd be playing around with the saturation knob and go, do you know?
So try around with this now, yeah?
Yeah, and sometimes it could be beneficial to do a little bit of Saturn and then a little bit of the saturation knob.
Yeah.
More often than not, you're probably going to choose one or the other.
Yeah.
Could decide to do a little bit with Saturn or maybe a little bit with the saturation knob. Regardless, the Saturn 2 settings, there's a lot more settings on Saturn 2 than there is on the saturation knob. The saturation knob's pretty simple in and out.
Yeah.
You've got so many possibilities with Saturn, which is
Yeah.
nice to have it there as a creative choice. So if you're using saturation knob and you're like, do you know what? It's not quite hitting like I want to, turn that off, have a play around with Saturn, go play some different presets or just kind of have a play around yourself.
Yeah.
For that experiment, let's turn off the saturation knob.
Yeah.
Yeah, and turn on Saturn. And like for this, just turn the drive up and see what happens. Peaked at 1 there, so you then go to the output and then drop that down by 10 or whatever.
Drop it down to -10.
Well, based at this point, like that number is arbitrary. It's based on the outcoming signal. So just play back now, check your gain on the channel.
Yeah.
So you could do the drive a little bit higher, blah blah blah. But yeah, basically.
Yeah, that's cool.
So again, just double check your level on the channel now. So play back.
Yes, it's gone a bit.
Now you'd want to turn the output down by 2. So +8. Again, you could use your keyboard to be quick.
Oh yeah.
Double click the middle of the knob. Yeah.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah, and just
8. Yeah. Okay. That's like another option.
Yeah, and at this point, you're not stressing about 0.2 dB of gain.
Yeah.
0.2, not a problem. We're going to hit the limiter next anyway, which is going to be set.
The limiter now, yeah?
So your output's on -9. That might work. Again, fine details. I would set it to be -10 to start. Again,
It's mine. So you just double click on it.
double click. You've just clicked something else there, which I'm not too sure. Yeah.
Okay.
12 should probably work. Let's see how it sounds. Yeah, so you're now stealing 2 dB of gain. You're making it sound louder without getting louder. We're sound dynamics for that always, but dance music isn't massively dynamic, especially good, hard dance music. But again, back, turn it on, turn it off, and just take a listen, see if you like what it's doing.
So it's just -2 dB.
Yeah, so it's doing like a maximum of -2 dB, which isn't really going to harm your signal too much.
If you wanted to push it a bit more, could you?
So I would say you can push it up to the point that red line is going back to 0. So for example, just set your gain to be 17, which is purposely too loud, and just look at the red line.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's too much, but maybe 13 you could get away with. 13, maybe 14.
So the kick sounds pretty cool with the. It sounds a bit more distorted, but it sounds like, like I don't know if you've heard of A Paul,
Yeah, yeah.
like his sort of
No, so I would,
subby kicks, but they've got like a bit of a.
yeah, so I'd look to get that effect from the saturation before the limiter.
Right, yeah, okay.
The
So
wants to be on the whole quite transparent and clean.
so I think plus 12 was pretty
Yeah, plus
bang on. So then we could go back to Saturn.
just before we do, I
Yeah.
just want to point out one quite important parameter on the limiter.
Yeah. Oh, put on the limiter, sorry. Yeah.
So the look ahead, if the look ahead is really fast and it even indicates it on the display, you see it's the bottom left knob
Look ahead, yeah.
ahead. You can see it's by default set to really fast, and there's a tiny little bit of redness at the very bottom.
Yeah.
So try going to 14, but then increasing the look ahead a little bit. Now, again, we might be sacrificing certain things by doing this, and I still think we're better off doing the style in the saturation knob. But if you just go put the gain to 14, we're going to hear that kind of distortion. Sorry, the gain to 14,
The gain. All right.
gain to 14.
Yeah.
And in fact, just play with the look ahead as you're playing back and have a listen to the effect that it's having on the sound. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so, so what's that actually done there, the look ahead?
if you keep your mouse there and hover, it should come up with the tips. I'll do it on mine so I can tell you. So yeah, so you'd probably want to go, I'd say about 9 o'clock on that, so that it's
About there.
a little bit faster, maybe.
About there.
Yeah, so yeah,
One maybe there.
I'd say the gain reduction that we're doing on the whole, yeah, about around there is going to be safe.
Yeah.
The gain reduction on the whole that we're doing there is a bit too much. I'd say you're
Yeah.
maximum of 3 dB. And if you want a bit more of an accurate readout, instead of having the metering on loudness, set it to like minus 16. So that bottom right hand corner where it says loudness.
Loudness, yeah.
So set it to minus 16, the top one. So we can see now a bit clearer.
All right, okay.
The key thing is you want this line returning to zero, which it only just about does.
Right, so maybe is it too high that?
Keep it at 12. Yeah.
So you're saying it goes back down, it's not quite going to this bottom line here.
Now it's like definitely going back to zero. So,
But before it was going like to here maybe and then
and that was basically totally flattening out the sound, therefore reducing all dynamics and essentially taking energy away from the sound.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is probably the sweet spot. It's still on like the more aggressive end, but we're making
Yeah.
aggressive music, so it does make sense.
So look ahead, would you say round that sort of area?
Yeah, that would be a safe area.
What about the other things?
Wouldn't worry about them too much, but if you want to kind of do a bit of bedtime reading,
Yeah.
I've just opened it up on my computer now. So yeah, so on Pro L2, across the top, you've got a default setting where it says presets, and then there's a little button that says help.
On this?
So if you click that, it should have, yeah, so show interactive help tips. So when you do,
Yeah.
you hover over and just leave your mouse, it then pops up. And I've just done it on mine, and it's popped up to say the look ahead knob sets how quickly Pro L2 responds to sudden peaks in the audio signal. With shorter look ahead times, you can achieve greater loudness at the cost of possible distortion. When using very short look ahead times, it is a good idea to use oversampling to minimize unwanted aliasing and intersample peaks.
Right.
Into aliasing and intersample peaks, that's heavy, nerdy audio shit. I would suggest that oversampling you have at the option at the bottom. I would say keep it at -2 or -4 always, and set it to like -8 or -16 when you're ready to bounce out the track.
Oversampling to what?
So I'd have it on -2 or -4, but be aware this really tans your CPU.
Right.
If you click where it says off now, you've got those options. You can see -16 bracket CPU intensive. So it's pretty hard to work at that level. So you're not going to want that. And basically, if you're doing 2 to 3 dB of limiting, it's highly unlikely you're going to really get any more benefit from doing it 8 times.
Okay.
When I'm doing mastering, I use several instances of Pro L2,
Yeah.
work at like -2, -4. When it comes to bouncing out the final track, I set everything to times 32. And yeah, and it makes it fucking ages to bounce out the track, but it guarantees me that I'm going to get the cleanest result.
Right, okay.
I'm less likely to introduce any distortion into the final master. So yeah, I'd set this in for the purpose of
So the last part,
just put it on 2 times, but make a note.
So oversampling.
Set to -8, set to times 8 or times 16 when you're ready to bounce the track out for pre-master. If your system can handle it, work at times 8, but because you're then probably going to be doing all sorts of other stuff, MIDI, other processing, it's likely to.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I've done in, like just working in audio, because it just seems to work. My workflow is a lot quicker. Like, obviously, I do all the stuff firsthand. Like, a lot of that was done with the drum machines and Logic, that I've got the plugins wise and that. And the MIDI, that little loop was done in something else. But then I think to speed things up, I'm going to start working in audio a bit more, because that's the way I used to do it with my other computer.
Yeah, and it's good. It's always good to commit to audio,
because then you don't make any, like, I've had a few glitches in the past with some plugins and stuff. So
yeah,
it's a bit better.
Cool.
Yes.
So what I'd say now, if you want to then do some stylistic, creative stuff, turn off the limiter, because you're always going to be pushing into that limiter and you're not going to see when it actually gets too loud. So the way we've been using the channel to look at when it's like at -10 or whatever,
yeah,
always going to be at -10, and you're going to be like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And then you'll bounce it out and then it'll be all flattened out, which is basically what happened with that acid track, I think.
Yeah.
Loads of processing before the limiter, not realizing that you were then pushing into the limiter really hard.
Right, yeah. I think I made a big mistake with that one. So we're happy with that. So you're saying to turn the limiter back off now?
If you want to do some more creative stuff with the saturation, like if you wanted to, get more crunch or whatever.
So I'll tell you what, I'm pretty happy. Let's hear it all together. We've got that running, not on the drum bus, which is another point to say. So I'm happy with that level of that one. Would you say anything because that's not got any process on it? We'll have a look at what it's going on with it, like low end wise, because I don't think I've filtered anything out with that. So will that need cutting or anything? This
Put a cut at probably 150, maybe 24 dB per octave, something like that. But again, using your ears. So yeah, I take that cut up to about 120 probably. There isn't a great deal of information down there. Yeah, about there. And again, okay. Your ears, making sure you're not removing too much character. Experiment with the different slopes as well.
Yeah.
Okay, have I lost character? But bear in mind, there is a psychoacoustic trick of the mind where the brain fills in details down there.
Yeah, I know. I've done that in the past where I think, oh, it sounds great with all this stuff at the low end, and then it gets too
exactly. But you're
in your brain.
Like you've got the kick and the bass going, and then you've got that going, boop, 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 and it's quite low anyway, and it gives your brain kind of makes it think that there is the sound's lower. It's really hard to explain, but it's don't be scared of cutting something a little bit higher than you think, because your brain will fill in, or the listener's brain will fill that in.
What about sidechain maybe, or not? Would you not think anything?
Yeah, so like a good thing to do here.
I've never sidechained I've always done it in Logic, so this would probably be a good idea to do it in the
okay.
C maybe. I'll show us what you'd do.
So let me think, because okay, oh, it's there on the plugin. So I'll control the screen for this bit just because it'll be a bit easier. So this we're going to do in the case of kick and just making sure that we've got room for the low end.
Yeah,
Say we were paranoid about taking too much low end out and we're just like, okay, we're just going to duck a little bit out of the way of the kick.
yeah,
Really useful to do this. Also, bear in mind that you could do this with two synths. So,
yeah,
I said before, you might have several synths going on, but one of them might want to get priority. So, say you've got this kind of low driving synth, and then another synth comes in, or maybe like a big sweep type synth or something. You
mm,
set the input to be a different synth so that it automatically ducks out of the way of a different synth, but
right,
only when it's playing. So that might make a bit more sense when I do this. So sidechain, audio, kick. Okay, so now that means the signal of the kick is being sent in to this EQ,
yeah,
and we can put in a node and we can make it dynamic. So when I do this, okay, now that node is dynamic. That means it is going to act upon the signal. That signal at the moment is its own signal. So I'll just play back.
right. So just show me again what you did with that dynamic.
Hold.
So you lifted it.
Yeah, so I'm just going to use the undo
Yeah.
button
So you just clicked it there.
node, and then it's the outer ring.
Outer ring, right.
And now
Okay.
it's the outer ring here.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that is reacting upon its own signal, and we've got the analyzer thing here. So we've got sidechain. What we want is the synth and the sidechain. Okay, so that's something that's not set for some reason to default on yours. Just we'll park that. That's not a big issue for now. But ideally we want to see the signal coming in so that we can then make the decision. So at the moment, this node is ducking based on its own signal. Yeah, on Pro Q3, turn on both of these pre and post.
Okay.
I think once you've done it once, it'll stay like that anyway. So you might not need
Right.
to. Now we can see our signal, okay? And we can also see the sidechain signal coming in. Yeah,
Right.
there's potentially a little bit of a conflict in this area. Given the timbre of both sounds, it's not going to be a huge issue, but it could still be very beneficial. So again, to reiterate, this is now dynamic based on. So if I just to really try to hammer this home, external off. Okay, so what we're seeing on the spectrum now is what we're hearing. It's exactly the same. That thing when the boop 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 happens.
Yeah.
We can set like the signal is now coming in. We can now look at that signal. Okay, we can see around this area there is a bit of a clash. So
Yeah.
after this has been made dynamic, we need to click this auto button. Just try and get this menu away. So it's this auto button. So it's a bit fiddly, but it's this auto button and then this little trigger thing here. Okay, so now this node is going to act based on the incoming signal, which is our kick. So before it was going like bouncing as it hit, now it'll bounce with the kick and the 4/4 pattern.
Right. Yeah, so like a little.
So you see,
You're reading this part you're reading here, just here, is you're looking at the kick coming in.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's showing another waveform there as well. Is that the rumble or?
No, that's the kick.
That's all the kick.
The red is the kick, and the grey.
The grey's sorry, the grey's the synth, right?
As that
So when you do that dynamic EQ, that's showing the waveform being changed by that node as well.
yes.
Yeah.
Is these two settings pre and post.
Right.
So if I was to turn post off, we wouldn't see the changes. So it's quite hard to explain. I don't know. Can you hear me when I'm playing back?
See, I can hear you, but when I play something on here, it's hard to hear. But
Easier to explain as it's playing back, but
yeah.
I'll do an extreme example so that you can see. But when set to pre and post, we see the lighter grey is the pre, and then there you'll see a deviation when I bring this down. Can you see how you've got the darker grey or the faded grey. So that's the post.
Right.
That's being taken away by the input of the kick.
Yeah.
So that's probably a bit extreme. I'd say -6 is the maximum you want to do in this kind of scenario.
Right. Right.
That's like going quite fast, and there's considerations to be made here in that like the length of the kick is going to affect it. So you could consider using a sidechain, like a separate sidechain signal. Another big caveat to that is that Pro Q4 is now out and it has an attack and release time like a compressor does.
Right.
But we can just use the threshold is at the top. It's going to happen, and then
Right. So it lost a bit of its, but you, to be honest, you won't hear that really when it's in the mix, would you?
well, yeah, again, these are the choices you then need to start making. So
Yeah, yeah, dynamic.
yeah, all together.
Okay, so happy with that. Because I've been looking a bit more into the. So like like that was a good way you did that. So like other instruments, finding out if they're clashing with each other or anything, what's the best way to do that?
Exactly the same, exactly the same way. Again, if you really did want to get into that, Pro Q4 has a way of looking at all of the things at the same time, and it just
Yeah,
shows you which is clashing. But say, for example, there's another synth with the setup that we've got here. You just load another Pro Q3, and instead
yeah,
of using the kick here, you choose the other synth.
right.
On the analyzer, you'd have pre and post, and then you choose sidechain.
So let me show you an example. Maybe if I just
Just before we go on, because
all
there
right,
is a quicker way to answer that. So on the spectrum here, we've got, in fact, I'll leave that as is and to
yeah,
answer the question differently. If we go to, where's the kick gone? Sorry, I'm just being dumb. Yeah. So say if we want to check our kick and bass. So load a Pro Q3 on the kick.
on the kick, yeah.
Sidechain is going to be this one.
Bass, yeah. No, sorry, the rumble one. It was the we need to delete some things, but it's minus rumble. Yeah, that one. That's it. I need to delete some of the other ones because we're not using some of them channels. But yeah, it's that one.
Yeah, those settings have updated now, and
Yeah,
so you might start with external spectrum off. We see then you turn external spectrum on,
yeah,
choose sidechain or just the actual channel. You can see that there's potentially a conflict there, but
yeah,
in terms of the time domain, you can see the kick happens and the rumble happens. The kick happens and the rumble happens. So you're not like, and also we're using our ears. They're not clashing. They sound nice together.
yeah.
They tonal. The kick's not too tonal. Like yeah,
As a say, if it was conflicting, what would be your best? Just do what we did before with the synth again.
yeah.
Or the Pro MD. Obviously, we've done that thing with the Pro MB, haven't we? But if it was clashing, would you say like to is that bit you did, didn't you?
Yeah. So you drop
Yeah.
or down, probably down, but you can do dynamic upwards as well.
Why isn't it working?
So if you click the outer ring and then drag up and down, up and down, yeah.
Ah, right, okay. Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't want to do that. Right, okay, I sort of get that, yeah.
Click the cross. So if you go down into the right a bit, yeah.
Right, yeah. Okay, so that's cool. So just as because I know we've got about 15 minutes left, but this has been really good. This because it's nice and clear.
Yeah,
But it's happy with all the sounds, and now it's so on the actual. I made this as I just made this as a last channel.
okay.
The output. This is like the main output. So everything's hitting at -7 dB.
It's a -7, but bear in mind what's going on now probably isn't the actual peak of your track. Like
Right.
other stuff will probably happen. So -7, great level, absolutely great level because
Right.
a bit of room to do other stuff.
Say if that was the level of everything,
Yeah.
is there any way you'd turn it up, or would you just leave it as it is?
I'd leave it 100%.
Okay, right, okay.
Get rid of every single plugin on that master channel.
Yeah, yeah. These are just that was just I don't know.
Delete them all.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you delete them all? Put a limiter on. That's all you need on your master.
Right. Okay.
So yeah,
What, an adaptive one or just
parallel to.
put that on the master? So maybe let's do this as the last.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Tie things up quite nicely. Keep your level meter on. That's, it's not affecting the sound. That's just useful utility to see.
right.
Cool. So your output is going to be minus zero point 0.5. That, yeah, yeah. So double click minus zero point 0.5. Okay.
Like that, yeah.
And your gain is probably going to be a maximum of 9. So given that
Nine like there, yeah.
given that your target is minus 6 is your peak. Okay. And stuff's going to be going like this, with minus 6 being the top.
Yeah.
So essentially, you've got a bit of room to push in. Again, what we're looking for the limiter to do is kind of maximize the loudness without harming the dynamics. We're losing dynamics a bit when we're limiting always, but we still want that line returning to 0. So if you play back now, okay, so yeah, you're getting almost 3 dB. That's the maximum you're going to want. So if you're actually at minus 6, then minus 9 is going to be the maximum amount of gain that you want to add. What I would say in terms of the view, we changed it before from loudness to minus 6. To minus 16. What I'd say is keep it at minus 16 when you actually apply the limiting, and then change to loudness just to check what your LUFS are. You can probably do that on a different plugin if you wanted to. But if you go to the bottom right hand now and switch to loudness, I would imagine what we've got going on here, you're going to get probably around minus 8 in terms of the LUFS, which is a good for again, this isn't like the full peak part of the track. So
yeah. So we'll just try it now then, do you reckon?
let's see what it comes in at. So I'm hearing a little bit of distortion actually there. So
yeah, yeah.
I'd nudge the look ahead up a little bit, and then again oversampling. Leave it at minus 2. Put it up to 16 when you're ready to bounce out. So I think your look ahead can be a little bit quicker.
Even bit quicker than that, yeah.
Drag from the middle of the knob for a more accurate response. Release can go a little bit quicker as well.
Got there.
Quicker. With the FabFilter stuff, the knobs react in a different way depending on whereabouts you click them.
Right.
Click them more centrally, you should get more of an accurate response, if that makes sense.
Right, okay, yeah.
But yeah, I'd go a bit quicker on the release. So that's faster. That's slower, sorry.
Okay.
About 100 milliseconds. Possibly a little bit quicker, but again, use your ears, check you're not introducing any distortion.
Yeah.
And then styles, again, this is kind of getting into creative decisions. I think I use all round for my master. I use all round or modern.
Okay, let's try that.
Try.
Modern's a bit subtler, I think, from what I could say.
I think actually just worth taking into consideration here is looking at the peaks, what's going on when the kick and the clap hits together. We're seeing a bigger gain reduction, so that might indicate that your clap is a tiny bit too loud. Not a lot. You might then bring your clap down by 1 or 2 dB. You might do the slightly smoother sound.
Yeah, I found that in the past when I've been making tracks. Sometimes the clap can go into the red. When it comes to the mastering. Like when I've tried to make it loud myself. For as a reference, it'll push past.
Yeah. So that's to do with summing.
Summing, right?
So we're going like way back into the production phase here, but sometimes, especially I was talking about the Digitact before, it's really easy to do on the Digitact where my kick on the 1 and the 3 is full velocity, and then the kick on the 5 and 11, which is the same as the clap, I will turn the velocity of the kick down a tiny bit,
Right.
give that extra bit of room so my clap can be a bit louder.
Right. Okay.
Creative production decisions to be made there, but something to think about. So the real simple thing, yeah, you see the clap, okay, it's summing too much when the clap's hitting, the clap needs to be turned down, but maybe you can think a little bit differently and go, maybe I turn my kick down a touch on the 2 and 4.
Yeah.
And that can actually give kind of more of a kind of push-pull groovy effect.
All right. Yeah.
And totally depends on quite a lot of other things.
Yeah. That's cool.
But yeah, it's been a good session, this, man. It's been a good.
Yeah. 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 I have enjoyed it because it's just simplified it a little bit more, and then
Yeah.
I've sort of got a good idea for the next ones because I've got so many ideas, but when it comes to the mixing stage, it's just helped a lot, really. So you'd say that that's probably the best points of before, like as my kind of master, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is, right, you've done your mix and then you want to go listen to your mix to see how it sounds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want to do is change your mix in any way before you.
Exactly. Yeah.
A mastering engineer might add some saturation. A very experienced producer, like we were talking with Mark Broom, might add some saturation before the mastering engineer, and not tell the mastering engineer because he wants that sound. So
Right.
means experiment with saturation on the master.
Yeah.
Just know that it's going to massively affect your mix.
Okay.
Try with and without, maybe even bounce out a version with saturation and a version without. But I would say the vast majority of the time, all you need to do is turn it up. You just want to turn it up so it's at a level volume,
Yeah.
volume compared to your peer tracks, and then you can actually make decisions on your mix.
Yeah.
If you're doing saturation, it's going to do various things to various frequency ranges, which is then going to take away your ability to assess your mix.
Right. So like I was thinking, say if that kick's hitting too much, we've already done that, haven't we?
Yeah, so like if it was a case of like doing more low end, so maybe you'd either look at increasing the volume of your rumble or your kick, or doing that thing that we talked about, like doing maybe a little bit of this,
Yeah.
like just doing a
What
little.
is there if it was hitting too much, can you do it the opposite way?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another option, maybe go to the drum bus. And so where's the drum bus now? Who's just been.
Gumbus is on everything apart from the synth. So you'll see it is here.
So just like as an option, maybe you're like, oh, okay, I want more low end. So go to Saturn and do a low end node and only boost the low end kind of thing.
Oh right, okay. So doing it in Saturn.
Yeah, but that's the kind of thing that you'd look to do. You wouldn't do it.
Cool.
You'd look to do it either on individual parts or in your group processing.
All right, brilliant. That's good for me, mate.
Cool.
No, I really appreciate that.